The Murdoch strategy in Australia, the United Kingdom and the United States for quite a period of time now has been along these lines. Churn out as much far-right extremist content as possible, and then turbocharge its penetration across those political communities using digital media platforms. Murdoch would say, great commercial success. But also Murdoch would know this is to the political advantage of his favoured political parties in the UK, the US and Australia. However, in the last few days, we've seen a startling new set of developments which provide us with a case study about where that takes our country, Australia. Two developments. Number one, the simple power and penetration of Murdoch's social media presence through Sky News's YouTube channel. In the last week, Sky News's YouTube channel passed 1 billion views. Put that in perspective, that is twice the size of the ABC, that is 3 times the size of Channel 9, that is 4 times the size of Channel 7. And that has Sky News steaming towards 2 million new subscribers to its YouTube channel. This is a vast new presence in Australian politics and society opening up. And based on the American precedent, it has as its clear mission statement the encouragement of far-right extreme views. There is a second development as well, tragically, and that is the attempted murder of a young Black Lives Matter activist in the UK, whose name is Sasha Johnson. She was shot in the head just a few days ago and is still fighting for her life at the King's College Hospital in London. The facts are still being established. Of course, Sky News presented their own factual coverage of the attempted murder. And if you look at the actual coverage itself, there's nothing intrinsically wrong with it. However, when you feed that story into the ecosystem they have created and turbocharged by the algorithms made available to them by their recently concluded deal with Google, guess what happens? It takes off. It takes off and acts as an echo chamber for these far-right views. And what are the views that I'm talking about? Of the 10,000 comments are registered on this site, you have the vast bulk of them now either mocking the victim, saying that she had it coming to her, and encouraging others to do likewise. This is gut-wrenchingly awful. It makes me sick to the pit of my stomach that this is happening in our country, Australia. But here's the crisis, and here's the tragedy. Those comments are still up there for all to see, being read, and in fact helping to fuel the further viewing of the original news story and turning itself into what some would call a virtuous cycle. I would call it a vicious cycle of reporting and commentary and reporting, all within a fixed ecosystem which says underneath it all that this is somehow okay. Now, of course, the Murdoch editors and the Murdoch owners will say to us, not our problem, not our bad, we just produced a straight up and down news story. And as far as the distribution of the YouTube channel is concerned and the commentary it attracts, well, that's a matter for Google. Well, I say this to you, Lachlan Murdoch, you can't just wash your hands of it that easily. Our job in this country is to preserve our democracy and to preserve law and order and to preserve a diversity of views being expressed without the threat of violence. Whereas this new business model and my argument, political model, being adopted by Murdoch, is now heading in precisely the reverse direction and represents a real and present danger to our Australian democracy. So here's my challenge for one Lachlan Murdoch. He's the only bloke who can do something about this. His editors are all too gutless to act independently. So Lachlan, why don't you man up, show some leadership, and direct Sky News to remove these comments from the Sky News YouTube website now. I've written to Google asking for this to occur. I've also copied that letter to the head of Murdoch Media here in Australia? So far, nothing. This is of fundamental importance to our democratic future. Otherwise, fasten your seatbelts and get ready for Australia bit by bit and more rapidly than you think, being transformed into what we've seen in the radicalisation to the far right of the Australian democracy as we've seen in the United States. Murdoch, Lachlan Murdoch, man up and act.